Welcome back to the ASUG News Studio. My name is Tom Whalegum. We are in part 2 of Happy Hour and HANA, and we have another all-star panel here coming back to talk more HANA live from ASUG Annual Conference in Sapphire now. And I will introduce the panelists. Cindy Jutras from Mint Jutras, who is a very well-respected ERP analyst, been following this for a long time. Cindy, welcome in.
Thanks, Tom.
Dick Hirsch back for part 2,
Yep.
SAP mentor, cloud extraordinaire, and blogger and tweeter extraordinaire as well. Vijay Vijayasankar back again from SAP. We appreciate you are coming in here and giving your thoughts. It's fabulous to have you here.
Thanks again.
And Josh Greenbaum from Enterprise Applications Consulting, and also probably needs no introduction in the SAP ecosystem, but we had to do it anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, we're here to talk more about HANA. Last week we had the big announcement, a little upstaging of Sapphire, getting some news out there, and actually it was the highlighting. Actually, one of the first people to run the HANA Enterprise Cloud was an ASUG member, on our board, Don Whittington from Florida Crystals. So very exciting news. Can you put the news last week in perspective and why this is important, Vijay?
Sure, thanks. There are two things to note here, and the first one is it is an additional deployment option for HANA that we announced last week. It already feels like longer than that. And the HANA Enterprise Cloud has two flavors to it, or two components to it. One is the infrastructure part of it that you can rent from SAP, and then there's a managed service part where SAP will manage the system for you. And this doesn't mean that you cannot run it on your own data center or somebody else's data center. We are just giving one more option. We are still very open to the ecosystem. The second part of the cloud announcement is the HANA Cloud Platform, which is our platform as a service offering, which is quite distinct from the infrastructure part. And this is where we expect the ecosystem and SAP ourselves to build the next generation of applications, extend the existing applications, and so on.
Dick, I know you're big into the cloud. What was your take on last week's news? How important was this announcement, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it was important, and I think it was important as well for the partner ecosystem. I think that wasn't played up as much as people might expect, because partners can get involved in the enterprise cloud as well. And I think that's large, not only for customers, but for partners and for the entire ecosystem. So that's for me one of the most important things that probably didn't get the attention that it really needed. And regarding the announcement yesterday, the press release yesterday, for me, that's the first time that SAP really officially has said, okay, this is the way forward. And I think that in the past there's been disputes regarding the various parts of SAP, and now that is the official way. And we'll see what happens in terms of a roadmap. Now we got to really see, are they going to follow it?
Right.
And how long is it going to take?
Right.
Because success factors on the platform sounds good. When's it going to come?
Right. Cindy, you've been following SAP for a long time. You've seen highs and lows. You know, it's interesting when Vishal has said, you know, everything's going to run on HANA. Do you think that's a good thing for SAP customers to hear that? And because maybe the ones who are holding back might be like, well, that's a little intimidating for us because we're not ready.
Well, I think because this is an option right now, it shouldn't be intimidating. Not to say some people won't be intimidated. And for example, on Business One, you can still buy Business One like you always have, or you can buy Business One on HANA. And of course, that's going to cost a little more.
Right.
And I think the biggest hurdle that we have to get over is for companies like small businesses running Business One, and even some larger companies to actually see the vision and see what the potential is. I think that's where a lot of people have, and customers have struggled, is this sounds great, but it sounds like an elegant technical solution in search of a problem, and I don't know how to find my problem. So I think it requires some vision, and it requires some more work in terms of education. It shouldn't be intimidating, though.
Right. Josh, maybe put this in perspective. Where are we now? It's 2013. SAP's been around for a while. Where is SAP right now in your point of view in terms of its evolution, looking back the 40-odd years it's been around?
And I've been around following them for about 21, so I can say that it does feel a little bit like the early 90s with client-server computing on the technology side and business process re-engineering on the business side, trying to drive customers towards new business models and new technology models simultaneously. We can, today it's in-memory computing, predictive analytics, and the kind of processing you get out of in-memory that's really driving, hopefully, some new business models. So I think it's a big inflection point. I think, it's going to be a complicated one for some companies. Client-server computing was a complicated shift back in its day from the old monolithic data center to a more distributed model. I think so as Cindy said, I think this ability to look at it incrementally and watch it sort of unfold. No one's going to force anyone to throw out the old and implement new is good, but it's big. It's a major inflection point, and I think we'll look back and say, yeah, that was, wow, 41 years into the history of the company, they made another big shift.
Right. One of the things I guess we can take that HANA really is ascending is that, they're starting to get a lot of shots from vendors, Oracle, and just, a little while ago, SAS's CEO was saying, HANA is just a SQL database. It doesn't change anything except it goes faster. So at least in one respect, Vijay, we could say HANA's on competitors' radars because it's getting their attention and they're taking shots at it. And SAP's kind of stayed above. But that competitive positioning is important as we look at this event. What do you think SAP has to really communicate to its customers right now to get that HANA vision out there as clear as they need it to be?
We have to make it easy for customers. That's by far the biggest challenge we need to overcome, right? If you make it complicated, the reluctance will not go away. And when we explain the value of HANA, we need to balance these technical benefits like speed and massively parallel processing with a lot of examples on how that tangibly impacts the business, be it MRP, be it faster billing, dunning, faster analytics, operational reporting happening quickly with the transaction, so on. And if we don't strike that balance, and if we don't make these migrations easy, a good example, right? When BW on HANA came out, we had a bunch of prerequisites like you need to do a Unicode conversion, you need to do a version upgrade, a database migration, and so on. And there were customers who gave us back this feedback that, guys, this is just way too complex and it's a long project. We worked on that problem and then we eliminated this challenge by having a tool that automates all of these complex tasks. So we need to make it simpler and simpler and simpler on the technology side and give really a lot of examples and show live customers, right? I mean, nothing sells more than a customer saying that I have found value.
Dick, does the cloud option make that easier, more palatable for some customers, do you think, that they're pushing the HANA into the cloud?
Of course. I mean, for some customers, for example, they might be afraid of the purchasing of new hardware for HANA. And if they can have the option to put that in the cloud, I mean, there might actually be one ability for them to very rapidly try HANA out in a large scale that they wouldn't be able to do on their own in their own environment. So I think that's a definite benefit. Just because the speed of the choice HANA yes or no occurs much sooner.
Right. Cindy, you work a lot with SMBs, and we talked about the SAP SME range, $1 billion or whatever, still considered small, medium. Do you sense that the message like that? I mean, it's 80% of SAP's customer base is considered SME, give or take. How is SAP going to reach that marketplace with the messaging, and do you think they've got a good chance to actually penetrate that market?
Well, I think the cloud will help there. It's interesting, particularly with the HANA Enterprise Cloud, in that it gives you the option of taking what you have and moving it into the cloud and then adding and evolving beyond it, as opposed to many people that are sitting on-premises solutions that may be outdated technology. In order to take advantage of that, they need to make a rip and replace kind of change. In the past, people have been very reluctant to rip and replace because, let's face it, for decades, ripping and replacing meant it took a lot of time, effort, and money to get back to exactly where you were, just in a little different position. That's not the case today. Today, newer technology and newer applications and more frequent innovation means when you're ripping something out and replacing it, you're taking a quantum leap forward. So that makes it that much more appealing. But in this case, you don't have to do it. You can take those SAP applications that you have and move them to the cloud and start to get value from HANA without making a big drastic change in the underlying application. And I think that's probably the most important factor.
Well, we've heard the innovation without disruption come back a little bit. Are you buying it? You really think?
Much more so than I ever was before, yes.
What about you, Josh? Are you buying the innovation without disruption, that SAP can actually hold that off for its customer base?
Well, it's funny because at sort of a philosophical level, if you're not disrupting, you're not innovating.
Right.
So I think that, and I think that
There's different kinds of disruption. though.
understood.
Right.
And let me sort of give the examples. HANA allows a level of innovation that really two levels of innovation. So one is really let's take the present and do a better job with what we've got. And I think that's sort of the first case. That's the easy case. Cindy was just talking about we're going to migrate to the cloud. We're going to do this. We're going to run things faster. They're going to be, we're going to see some throughput change.
Yep.
Hopefully some TCO change as well. The next level of innovation is disruptive. Now that we've got this engine, this very fast database, this very amazing ability to analyze quantities of and types of information we never saw before. Now we're going to say, what are the new business models? What are the new service levels? What can we do that's entirely different? How can we reimagine the business?
Right.
That's going to be disruptive. If it's not disruptive, you're not doing your job, in a sense. So I think, yeah, let's get to that base level of innovation where we're just doing things better. That shouldn't be too disruptive. It sounds like it won't. There's some, we need a few more proof points before I think we say, yeah, no disruption. But I
Right.
think it's really at the next level. My big question as an analyst and consultant is, how do we do that disruption? I want to figure out the way you can't just, you can't rely on the same 5 smart people to come in and disrupt the company. You got to scale that disruption. You got to take that Imagineering to the masses. That's going to be hard, but it could be the real. I think the real value of HANA in the long run is going to be taking it to that very next level.
Right.
And I do think that a large part of that disruption and extra value will come from the startups that are working on HANA.
Right.
So there are hundreds of startups, right? Few hundreds of startups that Kaustav Mitra's team is working with. And I don't think that SAP will come out with all the applications that will disrupt the enterprise. Vast majority will come from the ecosystem. So if you have 400 companies working on this, I would expect at least 10% of them to be very valuable. So I do expect that some disruption will happen very quickly because the first set of startups are very close to their end goals. So I think that's where we will see some good action.
Yeah, but do you think this innovation is going to come from the startups or from the existing SIs? Or is the mindset totally different?
The existing SIs have a very valuable role to play here because these big investments in BW and ERP and so on
Yeah.
still need tweaking. Like, for example, ABAP programs that were written in a certain way will not make use of HANA. So
Right.
if you want those changes and you don't have the in-house expertise, it's the SIs who need to fix this problem. Right? To maximize the value of HANA, plus the second area, which is probably even more important than the technology part, is SIs have a lot of domain expertise. These
Right.
guys are embedded in, and I was working in an SI for a very
Yeah.
long time. Right? They have a lot of domain expertise and probably more than SAP does in some cases. So that is also incredibly important, right? SAP can provide the platform for innovation, but you still need the domain expertise to make it useful to a customer. So I think
Yeah.
SI partners play a very important role in that.
I think there are almost two different parts, two different types of innovation.
Absolutely.
I mean, you need both.
And I would argue, I mean, that's exactly right from what I've been looking at, and I was speaking to one of your partners, Atos, today about this very problem. The partner, the ISV partner is going to be able to say, here's a class of packaged application running on HANA that's going to take you to this level. The SIs are going to come in and say, let's look at your specific business geography and business problem and build that custom innovation very unique to your business. Two paths. We've seen this bifurcation of innovation going on for decades
Yes.
in the SAP business. And I think it's going to me, what's exciting is the possibilities are much greater for innovation. The challenges are also much greater.
Yes.
Well, as we get set to wrap up here, I'm going to read a quote from Vishal, SAP's Vishal Sika, and I want to get your take on all it. He said, at some point in the future, complex implementations should go away. And I'm going to start with Cindy. I'll put you on seat. Quickly, what do you think about it? Do you think we got a good chance to get rid of it, really get rid of the complexity in these SAP environments?
I think that there will still be complex computations, but they will be under the covers, and they will be transparent to the business user, and that should be the goal. Not to eliminate the complex computation, but to eliminate it from being a stumbling block and visible to the business user.
Right, great. Dick?
Right, I mean the algorithms, I think the new kingmakers are going to be the people, the business analysts who do exactly these sort of algorithms, because that's where the complexity is, and it has to remain, because that's where the domain knowledge, the domain expertise is.
Josh, and then I'll go to Vijay. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, that's right. I think that complexity will go away when business stops being complex, which is never.
Right.
I think that implementation complexity has been a problem. I think maintenance complexity has been a problem. For years I've been buying cars that have the highest consumer report rating for maintenance because I don't want to take it to the shop every 3 months. I could buy a car that does that as well. I think that we need to take that model into the enterprise. I think we can do that. But I think algorithmic complexity is beautiful. We should encourage that, not get rid of it.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Vijay.
There are two types of complexities that we need to handle. The computational complexity should be handled by SAP behind the scenes, so our customers shouldn't have to worry about it, or if they have something that we haven't provided, it should be easy enough for them to do it. There's the second level of complexity, which is from the partner community, where the complex implementations take a longer time and hence cost more money. I was talking to a lot of partners in these last 2 days. Not a single one of them is a big fan of complex implementations anymore, because they have this feedback way more than we do. So they're also all in on this. So
Right.
I think it will come down.
Well, great. Thank you, everyone, for your time. It was a great session. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more interviews, check out asugnews.com, and we'll be back here live tomorrow from ASUG Annual Conference and Sapphire Now.